Hey everybody, it's Dr. Joe's in the house again on this Wednesday evening. Hope it's fine wherever you are. Hope you're doing well. And that last week was a good week for you. It certainly was a good week for me. And looking forward to this week. Anyway, so today, back to Section 8 again. And so I'm going to talk about that. This time, more specifically about the paperwork associated with Section 8. And so that should be interesting. Hopefully, it's enlightening and educational for many of you. As usual, we'll be having, the Ask Dr. Joe session in about 25 minutes, about 20 minutes from now. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll get to them, enter your questions in the chat, and I'll get to them about 15, 20 minutes from now. Also, if you have any specific, situations, challenges, problems, situations that you'd like to get my insights, by all means, book a one-on-one with me. You go to my website, www.joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo. We can do a deep dive into your situation. Again, I'll keep on harking on this thing. I spoke to some investors earlier this week. In fact, one of them at a meeting I had, who's just going through pure hell with his rental property in terms of tenants not paying him. He's getting very, very frustrated. And talking to him, it was pretty clear to me what the next step should be, and what he should do, and and so forth. So I suggested, there's no need to fight the battle by yourself. Schedule a one-on-one with me, and I'll be able to provide my perspective on how you can get out of the situation that he's in. And so there's a lot of people I'm pretty sure who also fall into that category. So feel free to book a one-on-one with me. Go to my website, joeasimo.com, or we can do a deep dive into your situation at hand. So today we're going to talk about navigating the paperwork associated with Section 8, and hopefully it'll be insightful. So let's get to it. So, the bottom line is this: if you're going to participate in the Section 8 program, there are processes, there's paperwork, there's stuff that needs to be done. Once you've selected a tenant. There's documents like the RFTA, request for tenancy approval document. There's a HAP contract. There are inspection documents. There's you got to provide proof of ownership. You got to give them your bank account information so you can get paid. You got to prove that, as I said before, you own the property. It's not somebody else's. If you have a management company who's managing it on your behalf, you have to show the management agreement. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and any problems there, you don't provide what they need, you first of all won't get accepted into the program, and secondly, you won't get paid, and so on. So it's really, really important, if you're going to go down the Section 8 route, that you understand the paperwork that's associated with that, such that you don't get paperwork deadlines you don't meet, or procedural steps that you kind of don't adhere to. So really, the truth of the matter is, mastering the administrative side of Section 8 is just as important as acquiring the property. There is paperwork, as I said before, and for many people, it's viewed as tedious bureaucracy. But it doesn't have to be that way if you take the time to understand what's needed from you, and you can master this. And it really does become a strategic tool. I mean, you're dealing with the government, and there are rules to make sure there's no fraud, waste, and abuse, that they're paying the right people. I mean, there's reasons why they do this, so there's no point fighting it. It is what it is. This is what you're going to have to deal with. So the most logical way is, rather than fighting it, take the time to understand and master it, understand the process, because that way you'll get paid quicker, and you'll streamline the onboarding process for your tenant, and also you can reduce dramatically the headaches caused by errors and delays. And I say this because many times you're dealing with bureaucracies where you have to have your I's dotted and your T crossed. throughout this entire process. If you miss something, there's a chance that your paperwork could be kicked back, which means that you lost time and potentially you lost money. So today in this live stream, I'm going to break down the critical paperwork. I mean, I'm not going to go through every paperwork document that you're going to have to deal with. I'll just go through the most important ones that you as a landlord, if you're going to participate in the Section 8 program, that you're going to have to provide and you're going to have to become familiar with. I'll kind of share with you some of my lessons learned through the School of Hard Knocks, and also share with you what some successful and unsuccessful landlords have to go through as part of this process. And so whether you're just getting started or whether you're a seasoned pro, I think that this should be a good session for you. So let's get down. I broke it down as usual into 6 parts, 6 steps, and after each one, I'll provide an action items, 2 or 3 or 4 action items that you can do as it pertains to that particular one category. So I'll break it down to 6. So number 1 is understanding this thing called a HAP contract, which is the Housing Assistance Payment Contract. This is the key contract that connects you as the landlord to the housing authority. The Section 8 program is a 3-legged stool, as they say. There are 3 participants or stakeholders in this. There's the housing authority that administers the program locally. Then there's the landlord, which is you. And then there's also the tenant who's going to occupy your property. So in between each of these 3 participants, there are contracts. So the contract between you, the landlord, and the tenant is the lease, the rental agreement. The contract between the tenant and the housing authority, there's one there which explains the rules and do's and don'ts and things like that they have to adhere to. And then there's a contract between you and the housing authority, and that's called the HAP contract. Okay, so that's the contract that defines the relationship between you and the housing authority. So the question is, what happens when you sign this HAP contract without fully understanding the terms? Okay, it's a pretty lengthy document. It's multiple pages in small fine print. It is written in stone. You cannot change it. It's a HUD form. There's no way that you can change anything in that document. It's written, cast in stone. It's either take it or leave it. There's no negotiations. Okay. So many times people just sign it and not really understand what's in the fine print. But it's your responsibility to understand that, because you need to understand what you're getting yourself into. So the Housing Assistance Payment Contract, the HAP contract, is really the foundation of the Section 8 relationship between you, the landlord, and the housing authority, the public housing authority. It spells out in detail the payment obligations, who's going to pay you, under what circumstances and situations. It defines in detail the responsibilities that you have and the responsibilities that the housing authority has. And also it defines the termination conditions, for both parties. If you want to get out, or if they're going to, they want to get you out, it spells out the conditions for both parties between you and them. Now, many landlords rush through signing this document, just eager to get their money, only to later realize that, they didn't understand what they were signing, like failing to maintain certain unit conditions. There are strict guidelines into the conditions of the property, and you have to adhere to. That can trigger, if you have a failed inspection, especially if it's failed after they've given you time to correct it, they can withhold your payments. And if necessary, if it's really egregious, they can even terminate the contract and so on. So they can abate your contract, which is stop your payments until you fix it. And if you don't fix it in a timely manner, they can just cut you off and kick you out of the program. Now you have no money coming in from them, and now you have a tenant in your home, okay, that you have to deal with. So seasoned investors understand the HAP contract. It's not just another form. It's not just a document. It's a legal agreement that governs every aspect of the landlord-tenant relationship between you and the housing authority through the Section 8 program. So beyond the terms, it includes things like a clause like tenants' rights. What rights do the tenants have? It talks about inspection compliance. You got to meet health and safety for your property, and your property has to adhere to what they call housing quality standards. As I said before, it gives grounds for termination. Under what circumstances can they kick you out the program? And under what circumstances can you leave the program? So experienced landlords develop systems to regularly check the unit condition. That way you don't fall into problems with the property. You want to document your compliance, regularly check the unit condition, maintain clear communications with the housing officials. And also successful investors take the time to read and clarify every clause. Take the time to read it. They're not just going to have a gun over your head. They're going to send it to you. You have the right to review it. If you want to seek legal counsel, to explain it, they'll do that. And sometimes the housing authorities will actually explain it to you, although they're not obligated because it's a legal document, and they don't give legal advice. So, successful landlords have built systems that ensure ongoing compliance, from ensuring things, simple things like smoke detectors functioning, windows and doors, and plumbing and electrical, and also responding quickly to tenant complaints. That's also an important thing, because if the tenant, something is wrong, especially if it's health and safety related, and they call you and you don't fix it, I mean, they do have recourse going to the housing authority, and the housing authority can request that you fix it in a timely manner. If you don't, then you could have some problems. So landlords who don't know and they skim the contract often face payment disruptions, penalties, or even delays that they could have avoided. So the HAP contract is not just a formality, it's a binding agreement that governs the financial relationship between you and the housing authority. So understand it fully can save you thousands and also avoid needless frustration. So what are some of the action items associated with that? Always review the HAP contract line by line before signing. Clarify any confusing terms with the housing authority, and schedule regular internal audits to confirm your unit standards are being met. Okay, so that's number one. We'll go to number two, which is the RFTA, Request for Tenancy Approval. That's another very, very important document as part of the process. And it's really the document that connects you with a housing authority once you found a tenant. So, you advertise, several people hopefully apply for your unit. You then select somebody. If they have a voucher, then you have to complete this Request for Tenancy Approval, RFTA document. You guys sign it, fill it out, get the tenant to sign certain pages, and then you submit it to the housing authority. So the question is, why do so many rent payments get delayed before a tenant even moves in? Why do you get your payments delayed? It's because you probably haven't filled out the RFTA properly. Okay, so let's get going. So the Request for Tenancy Approval, the RFTA packet, is the landlord's first major paperwork hurdle. As I said before, this is a document that you fill out once you select the tenant, and the tenant has a Housing Choice Voucher, a Section 8 certificate. And this is where a lot of investors get stumbled. They don't complete the document properly, missing signatures, incorrect information, incorrect addresses, outdated utility responsibilities. These are common issues that delay the process. As I said before, you're dealing with bureaucrats where everything has to be perfect before they submit. So since rent payments don't begin until this packet is approved and the unit passes inspections, delays here can cost weeks, can cost you time, and time means money, which means that you're going to have your rental income, not present. So the RFTA includes things like, includes the lease. Sometimes you have to provide them with a copy of the lease, property details, what kind of property you have. Is it a row house? Is it a single family house? Is it a duplex? Is it a condo? They want to know information about the house, when it was built, the proposed rent, how much you charging, and do you have certifications like lead clearance certifications or any requirements from your state. So like in Washington, D.C., they have a whole bunch of different requirements. They have a tenant's right document that you have to fill out. You got to obviously provide lead certifications if your house was built before 1978. So they want to know that. And so you got to fill it out and get the tenant to sign it and so forth. Also want to know the unit condition. So it's probably one of the most scrutinized pieces of paperwork by the housing authority. That's why this has to be 100% perfect. Even a small error can result in the packet being rejected, okay? And therefore, weeks of back and forth will then transpire. And each time there's weeks of back and forth, it means that you're not getting paid. So investors must approach the RFTA as a high-stakes form that sets the tone for the rest of the tenant stay. Savvy landlords like you and I have learned to prepare for the RFTA in advance. So we get the document, look it over, and make sure all the information that is required, we assemble that in advance. We may have a template that we use, and so a lot of the stuff is filled out already in advance, and so we can streamline the process and get the form submitted as soon as possible. You can also obviously meet with a housing caseworker if she's available to make sure that everything's in order. So getting the RFTA right the first time dramatically increases your speed to income. If you get it wrong, it's going to dramatically decrease your speed to get income. So the faster you move from the tenant approval to rent checks, the stronger your cash flow is going to be. Okay, that's the bottom line. So what's some of the action items here? Use a checklist to complete all parts of the RFTA packet accurately. Confirm utility responsibilities matches the lease and the RFTA. So you ought to confirm that who's responsible for utility, who's responsible for the gas, the electrical, the water, the sewer, the appliances, who's responsible for that, and so on. This is all the stuff you have to disclose as part of the RFTA process. And submitting the RFTA in person sometimes is acceptable. Some housing authorities in Washington, D.C. and some of the surrounding areas, you have to submit it electronically through a secure portal as opposed to just handing it over in paper form. They want it all electronic. So keep copies, obviously, of all submitted paperwork for your records. So that's number 2. The next thing is, which I'm going to talk about, number 3, which is navigating the rent reasonableness and setting the right rent. Okay, so rent reasonableness. What in the world does that mean? And making sure that you get the right, you set the rent, you request the right amount of rent accordingly. That's what, I mean, it's a complicated topic. I mean, that's a topic in itself. What is reasonable? There's several factors in that. There's obviously the market rent. There's what they call the payment standards, which is set by HUD. And there's also this other thing called affordability. Can the tenant actually afford this thing? All those 3 things come together to determine what rent, they'll accept for your property, and so on. So, okay, so the question, I suppose, is, not that one. The question, I suppose, is sort of, are you unknowingly underpricing your unit, or worse, getting denied for asking too much? So, you're leaving money on the table or not. So rent reasonableness is the housing authority's method for confirming that your requested rent aligns with the local market. Okay, so if the local market says the rent is $3,000, there really is no point you asking $4,000 because the chances are it's going to get rejected. Likewise, if you ask for $2,500, then you're leaving money on the table. Okay, so many landlords either guess too low and leave money on the table, or aim too high and face rejections and delays. So the key is providing documentation and comps that justify your rent. Now, depending on your housing authority, they may already tell you, for this zip code, we're going to pay this amount. And in Washington, D.C., there's a website which they use to determine rent reasonableness. And I mean, that's a dynamic process as well. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't. But understanding the rent reasonable process also means knowing what the housing authority values, what's important to them, because not all properties will get the same rent many times. So sometimes it's typically based on the location. It could be the zip code, it could be the neighborhood, the part of town, the condition of the property. Is in good condition, is it failing condition where it's unrenovated, what kind of amenities are you providing, appliances, and also they want to know the utility structure. Obviously, if you pay all the utilities, electric, gas, and water, then you can request more rent because there's less that the tenant has to pay. Likewise, if you're paying none of the utilities, then you're probably going to get less rent than the person who's requested to pay it all, because the tenant now has to pay for utilities. So so you have to think that through. I never pay utilities. Just let you know that. I've tried that before. Well, I have never tried it, but you hear stories of if the tenant doesn't pay the utility, electric, gas, and water, there's a pretty good chance that they're not going to take they're just gonna. There's no concern if the AC is running and the windows are open, or there's a leak in the faucet and water's dripping, or it's cold outside, the heat is blasting and all the windows are open. I mean, if you're not paying for it, you don't care. So I never pay for utilities. I don't care what anybody says. So, but amenities that they look for that may get you more rent. Things like parking, laundry. Do you have a washer dryer in there? What's the condition of the kitchen, the bathrooms? These kind of things, the appliances that you're offering, these kind of things will tend to get you a bit more rent than those people who don't provide that. So experienced investors like you and I gather rent data in advance. We do our comps. We make contact to the local real estate agent to get the information for us. And we also look at similar properties in the same zip code, same bedroom count, same conditions, to kind of get some comps as to what the market is bearing locally, and so on. So so essentially, by understanding the rent reasonableness process, it helps you advocate for high rents and also build predictable cash flow. It's not just about what you want to charge, it's about what you can prove you should get. Okay, so what's some of the action items associated with this one? Research comparables in your area. Use things like Zillow, Rentometer, and other tools. Prepare a rent justification packet to submit with your request, just in case you feel that what they're suggesting is too low. You can always submit an appeal, and but you have to provide that with data. Be open to negotiations with the housing authority if necessary. Okay, so that's number 3. So kind of halfway through. As usual, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them in about 5 or 10 minutes from now. And anything to do with real estate investing, put them in the chat box. And if you want to do a deep dive where you want to book a one-on-one with me, where we can really drill down into your situation, any problems, frustration that you're experiencing, any challenges that you're kind of dealing with, if it's real estate related, of course, then feel free to book a one-on-one with me. You can go to my website, www.joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com, and book a session, and then we can do that deep dive. Okay, so that's number 3. So let's move on to number 4, which is passing the housing quality standards HQS inspection. This is a concern for a lot of people. HUD does have guidelines as to what the condition of the property must be. Most of the issues tend to be most of the inspection items tend to be more health and safety related. So the question is, what's worse than a vacant unit? What's worse than a vacant unit? In my opinion, what's worse is a failed inspection that's delaying your rent. And it's happened to me before, yes, where the inspector comes, they do an inspection, they say, well, you need to do A, B, C, and you think you've done A, B, C, but they come back and they say, well, it's not done properly, and they fail the unit. And if you don't, technically, they can abate your payments at that point, which means that they're not going to pay you. So yeah, that's worse. Having no one in your house, I'd rather that than having somebody in my house and I'm not getting paid. Then you have to evict that person. So it can be worse. So inspections are mandatory, and they must be passed before rent payments begin. This is the initial one. However, many landlords overlook basic maintenance or misunderstanding, or really misunderstanding the HQS requirements, resulting in failed inspections and weeks of lost income. People just don't take the time to find out what the inspector's looking for, in other words. So minor issues like broken blinds, not working outlets, or missing window screens can lead to delays and frustrations. Yeah, you can fail because you don't have a screen in your window. You can fail because one of the outlets is not working. You can fail because the window doesn't open and close properly. Yeah, you can fail, which means that you have to fix it before payments can be made. So these delays can be very, very frustrating. And some investors adopt what I call a Section 8 ready strategy, which I mean, that's what I do. I know what the inspector is going to look for. So I go to the unit beforehand, check everything, double check, triple check, quadruple check to make sure everything's okay. And then that way the house is inspection ready. And it also prevents any last minute scrambling around when the inspector shows up. So many other people develop inspection prep guidelines, walk through the routines. As I said before, they walk through the property in advance, and to make sure that everything's okay. I have a checklist, which is part of the, what we call it? I call it the punch out list. So once the house has been ready and the contract says it's good, I go to the house and check everything myself. I have a checklist. I have the adapters. I have a whole bunch of different things which I check, and do a pre-inspection walkthrough using the same criteria that the inspectors use to, and if there's any issues, I try to correct them in advance. Okay, some people hire third parties to do this. I don't think it's necessary. I think you can do it by yourself. But a pass on the first inspection doesn't just save you time. It keeps your business running efficiently and also keeps your tenants happy. So what are some of the action items associated with this? Use the HQS checklist to conduct your own pre-inspection. Hire a contractor to fix any issues before the official inspection beforehand. Be present during the inspection if you can. If you can't, well, someone needs to be there anyway to let the inspector in, and so on. So that's number 4. Move on to number 5, which is managing the annual recertifications and interim changes. Now, as part of the Section 8 program, tenants have to what they call recertify every year or 2 years, or if there's a change in their situation, change in their income, i.e. they made more income or they lost income, or it could be that there's a change in the number of people in the household. Then they have to let the housing authority know that, and so on. Okay, so the question, I suppose, is do you know what happens when your tenant's income changes or they add someone to the household? That's what these interim changes mean. Annual recertifications, again, it depends on the agency. I know in Washington, D.C., it's every 2 years, so it's biannual. And interim changes are critical touch points that can impact your rent and the tenant eligibility. Investors who ignore or delay submitting documentation often experience retroactive payment reductions or compliance violations. Caseworkers, they need information about your tenant. Obviously, it's not your responsibility because it's the tenant information that they usually want. But, if they don't get it in a timely manner, then it could affect your payments. So it's in your interest to make sure that the tenants provide the information that the housing authority or the caseworker is looking for. So that way you don't sort of interrupt the flow of money. So, so remind your tenants, have a checklist. And, even the worst case scenario, you can help them gather the information as well. So clear communications helps prevent discrepancies that can impact rent amounts or delay payments. All this is about trying to not disrupt your cash flow, not disrupt your payments. That's what it's all about. So a few minutes, 5 minutes talking to the tenant to make sure that they have all their stuff together could save you thousands and thousands of dollars. So when done right, recertifications are pretty much routine every year, every 2 years. When mishandled or not done properly, it can create chaos. And, so you want to protect your income stream. In fact, I can tell you a story where one of my tenants she failed to recertify. And the bottom line is that after a few, attempts by the housing authority to contact her, which she didn't do, they terminated the contract, the HAP contract, and therefore my payments were stopped. Okay, so it can be very, very serious. When they say they want information, if you don't provide it, the tenant doesn't provide it in a timely manner, it could affect your payments. So track some action items you may want to consider in this part here is track recertification dates and set reminders for each tenant. So the recertification dates varies from tenant to tenant. It also depends on the jurisdiction where your property is. It could be every year, every 2 years. You may want to put little ticklers in your contacts or your reminders, so you can remind the tenant, hey, this is coming up soon, please get ready. Educate tenants on their responsibilities to report income or household changes, and also follow up to confirm when updated rent amounts will go in effect. I mean, I'm going through one tenant right now where she lost her job through, she worked for the federal government. She lost a job through those reorganizations that President Trump and Doji is doing. So she was fired. And so her income went down. Fortunately for me, anyway, she has a voucher, which means that her income has gone down, which means that she has to request an interim rent change. So her rent is going to go down because her income has gone down, and Section 8's portion is going to go up. To balance things out. So loss of income is not such a big deal with Section 8 as it would be if you had a market renter, where if they lost their job, they may not be able to pay you. And that's one of the benefits I like about the Section 8 program. It's pretty much a very stable income stream. Well, we'll see how Doji deals with that, but usually it's pretty stable. Okay, number 6, the final one, handling tenant moves and terminations. Unfortunately, every now and then tenants will move, and hopefully it never happens to you, but sometimes tenants don't live up to what their part of the rules are, and they can be terminated, or you can be terminated as well, to tell the truth. So the question is, what do you do when your Section 8 tenants wants to move, or worse, has to be evicted, or you are kicked out of the program? What happens then? So Section 8 has the right to move, has the right really to move, based on certain timelines. So tenants have the right to move. I mean, you can't keep them hostage. Normally the first year they have to be there. After that, it could be a month to month or whatever it is that's going on in your city or state. And but you as a landlord have to follow specific notice requirements. So failing to submit proper notice can result in payment gaps or disputes. Likewise, evictions under the Section 8 program requires extra documentation. You have to notify the housing authority if you're going to evict your tenant. And also, obviously, you have to complete the process according to the local laws, the state laws, wherever you are. So tenant transitions, are a critical phase, really. And the quicker you can do this, the better. Landlords who communicate early and clearly with both tenants and the housing authority avoid extended vacancies, and document everything if you're having a dispute, from the tenant intent to vacate to the final walkthroughs. It's all essential. Paperwork. Successful landlords work closely with the housing authorities during the move-out process. We document the unit conditions with photographs, submit move-out notices promptly, and keep the lines of communications open with all parties involved, i.e. with the tenant and also with the housing authority. In case of eviction, though, obviously you want to make sure that you comply with your local laws. So it's probably a good idea to consult with the legal counsel and follow all the procedures to avoid delays. And the bottom line is, it's a business. You have to protect your income. So what are some of the action items associated with this? Submit move out notices as soon as the tenant provides you with the intent to vacate. So if the tenant says they're going to leave, then you want to provide them with a note saying that, okay, based on the notice that you provided me, it's my understanding you will leave by this date. Take detailed move out photos and document all damage, and consult a landlord, tenant attorney when navigating an eviction. So that's about it. It's just conclusion. Section 8 investing really does offer one of the most stable, scalable paths to long-term rental income, but only if you understand the paperwork that kind of follows or powers the program. From mastering the HAP contract to passing inspections, justifying rents, and navigating tenant changes, every step of the process carries both opportunities and risk. The landlords who succeed, i.e. you and I, hopefully, are those who take administrative sides, the administrative sides, very, very seriously. They build efficient systems, learn from the wins and setbacks of others. So really, your ability to navigate the paperwork with confidence will determine your long-term success participating in the Section 8 program. It can mean the difference between consistent cash flow and payment delays, between tenant stability and avoidable tenant turnover. So landlords who view paperwork as a burden often struggle. Those who treat it as part of their investment strategy, they thrive. If you've ever been frustrated by delays, confused by forms, or overwhelmed by deadlines, you're not alone. It is what it is. But but with the right knowledge, tools, and mindset, you really can turn the Section 8 paperwork from a roadblock to a launch pad. And your paperwork is not just paper. It's a pathway to profits, peace of mind, and long-term portfolio growth. There, my friends, is that's it on the education part. And so again, as usual, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box. I'm going to go to it in about a couple of minutes. Anything to do with real estate, put them in there. I've got quite a few questions already. If you want to email me, you can email me at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And as I said earlier on, if you want to book a one-on-one Zoom session with me, we can do a deep dive into your situation, your challenges, any frustrations that you're experiencing, or you really want to just leverage on my 30 plus years of experience. Book a one-on-one with me. Go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. That's www.joeasamoah.com. And I look forward to discuss your situation in more detail. Don't do it alone. I've been there, done that. I've made the mistakes. I've overcome them. Just book a session. Let's just knock it out. Okay, I think we're good. So let's get down to questions. And let's see what we have here. So Dow2. Hi, Dow2. How you doing? From Phoenix, Arizona. One of the regulars is always there. So if you're doing well, I'm sure the weather is very nice where you are in Phoenix. Nesta Can. Thanks for doing this topic. I just finished rehabbing my property. I'm looking to put my property on Section 8. Okay. If a tenant breaks something on you in your lease, can you report them to Section 8? Would they lose their voucher? Well, yeah, you can always report the tenant to the Section 8 if they break a lease. It depends what the lease is, what the lease violation is, I would say. Some of these lease violations are pretty minor, but if it's major, and especially if it's causing a disturbance or causing problems, especially with neighbors or your property, or causing damage and things like that, then you may want to let the housing authority know about it. Several things can happen once you report them. They can get notice saying that, hey, you need to correct this problem. Otherwise, you're running foul of the program requirements, and therefore you can get terminated. So they can lose their voucher depending on the nature of the violation. If they're not paying you the rent, they're not taking care of the utilities, they're causing damage to the property, destroying, causing mayhem in the community. Yeah, these could be grounds for termination. So I normally try to, I try to speak with the tenant and try to create a win-win scenario before I have to report it to the housing authority. That's really the last step. because I'm in a tenant-friendly jurisdiction here in Washington, D.C., which means that it takes forever to evict a tenant. It could take 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years to get somebody out. So, if you're in the house and they leave and your payments have stopped, now it's your problem. So, just use your best caution. But yes, you can report them if that's the question. If a tenant on Section 8 has to be evicted, who does the eviction? You have to do the eviction because it's your tenant. And the Section 8 is certainly not going to do the eviction for you. So you have to get an attorney if it's a complicated process. You're going to need to understand the eviction process. So that way you don't make a mistake and your case is, dismissed once it goes to the court. I know where we are, you have to have a renter's license in order to, or a landlord's license, I suppose, in order to rent a property. And if you don't have a license and you try to evict somebody, your case could be dismissed because you're running a quote unquote illegal rental. There's evictions. It's very local, state specific. So you want to make sure you understand how the process works where you are, and make sure that if you're going to do it yourself, then you fully understand what the process is like. If you're going to hire an attorney, hopefully you're going to hire an attorney with experience, and they can hopefully avoid mistakes as well. Okay, Nestor again. Wow, Nestor, good stuff. A lot of questions today. When you find a tenant and they pass the background check, do you bring their packet to the Section 8 office? Yes. So here's the process. You got a property, you fix it up, and you get it ready for the next tenant. You're going to advertise. Hopefully, you're going to show the house. Ultimately, you're going to make a decision as to, you're going to screen, and then you're going to select somebody. So once you selected somebody, if that person has a voucher, then you have to complete the RFTA, request for tenancy approval packet. Some people call that the lease-up packet. And because up until this point, the housing authority doesn't know you exist. You haven't, if you rent to somebody who doesn't have a voucher, a market renter, then there's no need for the housing authority to be involved because your tenant doesn't have a voucher. So you only get them involved once you select somebody who has a voucher. And at that point, you then submit your RFTA to the housing authority, and that kicks off the process. So yes, do you bring the packet to the Section 8 office? Yes. And you're responsible for screening. They're not. They don't screen their tenants for, the same way that you do. It's buyer beware. If you select the wrong person, you can't blame them. You're going to blame yourself. So that's why I pay a lot of detail and attention to screening. How can we maximize HAP payments? B. Francis. Different ways. One way, obviously, is to know what they pay. And you can either contact the housing authorities, the caseworker. You can find out what data they use. You can do some comps yourself. You can develop relationships with people, so hopefully they can kind of tell you. So there's things that you can do. Sometimes they'll tell you this is what we pay after utilities have been subtracted, and that way it's take it or leave it. There may be some little wiggle room here, but generally, they say this is how much we're paying, and then if you like it, fine. If you don't, then it is what it is. Oh boy, sorry. Boy, long day. So how do you maximize HAP payments? So I would say find out. I speak to people within the housing authority, have some off the record discussions. If you want to know how to develop relationships with people down at the housing authority, I can tell you that one. How do you develop long-term relationships? Because you and I know that for any bureaucracy, your success is all about relationships with people in the program. There's ways to do that. It's just too much detail to talk about it right now. But if you want to know, please book a one-on-one. I can go into much more detail for you. So I would develop relationships, speak to people, go on the website. They may advertise this stuff as to the maximum that they can pay. But generally, there's 3 criteria to the rent reasonableness. There's the what the market rent is. There's another one called it's payment standards, they call it, which is the maximum rent that they can pay, and then there's also affordability. So these 3 conditions will determine what they approve as for your rent. Okay, Nestor again. Wow. Again, if you got some questions, please put it in the chat box. I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. So what would you suggest? Security deposit first? What would you suggest? Security deposit and first month's rent, or just security deposit? Remember, they are not making a lot of money. Well, I would suggest that you get security. If a tenant is moving in there, let's just say May the 1st, I typically require that they bring the security deposit, for which is typically 1 month's rent, and the first month's rent. The first month's rent, because their portion is relatively low, because the housing authority pays the difference. Their first month's rent, maybe $200, $300, whatever it is. Not the total amount of rent; it's their portion. Okay, so that's how much I typically ask that they bring. And if they love the place, which hopefully they do, they'll figure out how to get the money. Alternatively, you can set up a payment plan where they stagger the payments to you over a period of time. They don't make a lot of money, so therefore you have to be creative in how you help them. So especially if you have a tier 1 quality tenant. I'm more likely to work with and help a tier 1 tenant than because I want them in my house. And if the security deposit and first month's rent is a problem, I try to work with them and get a payment plan going, and so on. Hopefully I'll answer the question. The next one is B. Francis again. What are the preferred amenities paid by the housing authority? Well, I don't pay for any utilities. So the tenant's responsible for utilities. In terms of amenities, things like parking. Does your house, you get more rent, brownie points, I suppose, for your rent if you have these amenities like washer dryers, parking, appliances, a deck, and then obviously the location of the property as well. These all come into play to determine how much rent you can get. So it's not just about the property, it's also about the amenities that you offer as well. Hopefully that helps, B. Francis. Again, if you got some questions, please put it in the chat box, and I'll try to I'll get to them as soon as possible. Thank you, Dr. Joe. Great session as always. Oh, you're welcome. Reddy, hope I pronounced that right. Reddy, and glad that you tuned in. Hopefully this was helpul, which it sounds like it was. If everybody else finds this today helpful, please put me in the chat box, and I'll get to I'll share with me areas of improvement, what you like about today's session, what you didn't like. And so I'm always in a learning mode. I spent quite a bit of time preparing for these Wealth Wednesdays, and hopefully I'm providing quality content, quality information, rather than just talk about hype and bluster and all that stuff, which most people tend to do. Okay, Miles, when looking for comps, can I grab the highest rent rates I see for similar types of property, or should I realistically be looking for the average rent? Well, there's no harm in including the highest rent that you can get. I mean, you're trying to build a case as to why you should get more money. So if you got some comps that are higher, I'll definitely put them in. And you know, because you're trying to support a case. They're going to pull their own comps, and you can be sure that they're not going to pull the highest that they can find. If anything, they're probably going to try and find the lowest ones and offer that to you. So you're trying to, it's almost like a three-dimensional chess match, where everyone's trying to look out for their interests, and hopefully you can get some kind of fair compromise, and so on. So yeah, grab the highest you can find for comps, in terms of location, the amenities, utilities, and things like that. Okay. Ready? Yes, correct. Ready. Okay, thank you. Ready? Favor? Thank you. This was very informative. Oh, you're welcome, Favor. And Dow too. Today was excellent. Oh wow. So it's like it was a good session today, sounds like. So hopefully this was helpful. Okay, go to Miles. Oakland Housing Authority sets the rent rates after passing the inspection. Okay. What would you do if the rent came back lower than the mortgage? I'm worried that my mortgage may be higher than what they offer. Well, what I would suggest is not wait until, too long to find that out. I'll try to find that out up front to see how much you can expect to receive from your housing authority in Oakland. Because there's a paperwork. There's paperwork. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you have. Let's say you have let's say you have three people who are interested in your house, and they're all past the inspection. Sorry, the inspection, the screening. You're going to have to make a decision as to who to rent to. One of them may have a voucher, one may not, and you have to factor in what's the chances that they may not pay you what you want. So I would definitely do some research. I would suggest that you contact the housing authority beforehand, explain your scenario, your situation, and they may be able to tell you if, how much they're going to pay, and then you can make a determination whether it's worth your while to go with them, or whether it's better just to go with a market renter. Sometimes market renters pay more. Sometimes the housing authority pays more. So it just depends on the situation locally. But I wouldn't wait until, you found a tenant and you've gone through the inspections to find that out. I think you need to know that up front, and that way you can make, good decisions without having to waste 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, just to find out. It was a complete waste of time. Thank you for this valuable information, Dr. Joe. Okay, you're welcome. So it's like everybody enjoyed today's session. Good. How long does it take to put together the RFTA? It just depends, Favor. I mean, I've done this in so many times. It doesn't take me long, but it does take time. There's supporting documentation you have to provide. Things like proof of ownership. Typically, they want a deed. You got to provide them with a bank account, where to pay you. There's some lead certifications that you have to provide. There's, in DC, there's another document like the tenant's bill of rights you have to provide. There's a whole bunch of different disclosures that pertains to lead. So it can be quite time consuming, 30 minutes, an hour. But they need it. So there's no point complaining. This is what they need. If you don't fill it out, you're not getting paid. So if you're going to go in the housing authority route, then these are the documentations that's going to be required from you. Okay, it's 7:55. Got a couple more minutes. So if you got a question, please put them in. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up in about 2 or 3 minutes. Favor, how do you handle tenants that do not pay their portion of the rent that Section 8 allocates to them to pay? Okay, so you have a situation where, let's say the rent's $1,000, the housing authority is paying $800, and the tenant's responsible for the other $200, and they're not paying it. Well, you can take them to court. You can evict them based on that, definitely. I would definitely suggest that you contact them, speak to them, find out what's going on, and get some kind of fair compromise, whether it be a payment plan or something. I never, if they owe me $1,000, that's what they owe me. I don't discount that stuff. So so they're on the hook for paying it, and also they're on the hook for paying the water bill as well. Where we are, the housing authority will not allow someone to move unless the water bill is $50 or less. So because the water bill tends to stay with the house, whereas the electric and gas tends to follow the tenant. So yeah, so your options are to talk to them. You can start the legal process to evict them. You can contact the housing authority, bring it to their attention, and hopefully they may be able to reach out to the tenant and work it out. When I called the Oakland Housing Authority, they said there's no way of knowing how much the rent will come back as after the inspection, until after the inspection. Would you say in that case it's too risky? Yeah, the exact rent, they probably won't know until, you know, the inspection is done, but you can usually get a ballpark, you know, amount as what they pay for in that zip code. You should be able to know that. There's somebody out there who will tell you, for this zip code, we typically pay around between this and this, depending on which utilities that you, the landlord, are paying. So if you're going to pay the utilities, then you may get more. If you're not going to pay less, the utility, you're probably going to get less. So it just depends. You may not get an exact amount, but you should be able to get a ballpark idea of what they'll pay. And then you can make a decision whether that ballpark is consistent with what you need. And if the answer is yes, then you can continue. If the answer is no, then at least you know this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to receive. Now, if they stay there long enough, each year I'll definitely be requesting rent increases, so you can pull up that the rent gradually over time. So yeah, you can do certain things, but I would say that somebody at the housing authority knows typically what they'll pay. I'll give you a range of what rents are for that zip code, given these conditions and so on. So you're going to have to speak to somebody on the inside, Miles, and then maybe able to tell you, the caseworker or somebody else. You can call me, schedule a one-on-one. I can tell you how to develop relationships down there. That will be very, very helpful if you decide you want to participate in the program. Digital Nomad, I really appreciate your content. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. And it is now 8 o'clock, my friends. I am going to wrap it up for the day. I hope that today's session was a good one. I think it was, based on the feedback you are. And again, feel free to like and subscribe. And you know, this is what I do. I take the time to provide quality information. No fluff, no nonsense. You know, this is it's all good. I spend a lot of time trying to give you guys you know, quality information. So the best way to book a one-on-one is go to the website, my website, joeasamoah.com, www, see if I can pull that up. Yeah, www.joeasamoah.com. That's www.joeasamoah.com. If you go to the website, you'll see a button say ask or book a session, ask Dr. Joe, and you can book a session from there. That's the best way. But as I said before, there's a lot going on with this Section 8 program. There's a lot going on for landlords, really. And so don't feel like you need to battle this thing all alone. You shouldn't have to. Leverage my expertise, and you know, and let's see if we can get to where you need to go to a lot faster. So, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. It's 8 o'clock, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. And until next Wednesday, take care. Bye for now.